Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on our Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About the Grant Review Committees Lunch and Learn. There's not that much lunch going on, but there will be some learning, hopefully. I am Margaret von Flatern. I have been a member of Impact Austin, I think for 6 years, and in that time have participated in, I don't know, 8 or 9 grant review committees. So I love the grant review committee process, and I'm excited today to talk about what we do and why we do it, and answer any questions anyone might have. And we're joined today by Elaine Jensen.
Hi. I think I also joined about the same time as Margaret and probably have been co-chaired with Margaret on Grant Review Committee and been on a member of a team probably every year since I've joined.
And Elaine is a great co-chair and a wonderful advisor. She's also been involved in technology and nonprofit coordinating is her most recent role. So she's got a deep knowledge. And we're also joined by Anne Helmick-Lyon.
Hi.
Hi, Anne.
I've been a member for a long time, I think 8 or 9 years at this point, and served on grant review committees from the day I started. That was just my passion as part of the organization, and worked with Margaret and worked with Elaine and worked with Jerrica. So we have built kind of a collaborative culture, I think, and there's a lot of women who've stayed for a very long time.
Thanks, Anne. And then Jerrica is our newest member to at least this group. Jerrica is working with Anne this year, or this grant season, as I always forget what y'all's title is. Grants coordinator?
Yes.
Yes.
Review coordinators. And I joined the organization, I want to say 2021, and I've been part of the grant review every cycle like Anne. That was my passion and whole reason for wanting to join the organization. So very glad to be here with everyone this afternoon to talk a little bit more about our process.
And Jerrica, do you want to tell the group a little bit about your background? So you're not only passionate about the Impact Austin grant review process, but you also have professional interest in nonprofits.
I do. So I worked in nonprofits in the Austin area for about 5.5 years before I joined a software organization where I became a product manager to help develop software to track impact and outcomes for nonprofit organizations to really understand the efficacy of their programming, if they're having the intended impact on participants of their organization, and how to better engage with participants to see the outcomes that they wanted for their clients or their participants of their organization. So it's something that I've worked with directly, working in nonprofits and also working on the tech side of things. So this has been a lifelong passion of mine. And now that I'm in tech, but in a different area, just committing more time to Impact Austin to stay connected to community is really important to me. And it's something that I like to say I got myself in trouble by raising my hand and saying, I have experience in this, but it really is a deep, deep passion of mine that I like to share with as many people as I can.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerrica. Well, the purpose of today's meeting is just to really kind of pull back the curtain on the grant review process, let you all ask whatever questions you may have about the grant review process. And this is an informal conversation. We do have an outline that just to help us to stay organized, to make sure that we cover all of our points. But anytime there's a question, please, we're not saving questions to the end. We want this to be conversational. And whether you're new to the process or you've done this a few times, like some other ladies on the call, all questions are welcome. We're really trying to move into this new grant cycle with a lot of transparency around what we're doing it and why we're doing it and how we accomplish what we set out to accomplish every year, which is to give away impactful grants to nonprofits in our community. So Jerrica will be looking at the chat too. So if you don't feel comfortable interrupting, which please do feel comfortable interrupting, you can always shoot a question over into chat. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Jerrica.
Thank you, Margaret. Something that we wanted to start with was just an overview of why we're here and why we come together each cycle to give out grants for our community. The mission of Impact Austin is to cultivate and expand the knowledge, passion, and generosity of our members by making impactful grants and creating strong relationships with the nonprofit community in Central Texas. And I always like to think back to the mission of the organization, because whenever I'm tasked with something or signed to do something, I want to know, like, why are we doing this? And this really is the heart of our organization, is to be able to provide grants for nonprofits in our communities that are really going to help their efforts and in turn help enrich our community. We are a collective giving organization, and many of you on this call probably already know this, but those that are listening back, I want them to understand collective giving is really a philanthropic movement that empowers people to come together and amplify their impact by giving together. So we can give individually to different organizations and charities that we're passionate about, but by pulling our membership together, bringing our funds together, and by making collaborative decisions, we're able to increase the impact that we can have on nonprofits that are awarded our grants. So it really is a way of us coming together as a community in order to invest in the community that we all love and care about so much.
You know, that's great. You've been here.
Yeah.
Okay. So my little section has to do with the importance of our group to the larger organization. So let me take a step back and ask any of you if near the end of the year or during the year you get solicitations from nonprofits that want your money. And you sometimes put them in a stack and think, I'm going to write that check later. Or sometimes you get to December and you go, oh, crap, I need to do it this year. And you start writing a bunch of small checks. And then you're busy sitting there trying to figure out who you want to invest in. Mm-hmm. So part of what we do in the grant review committees is we do that for the nonprofits that apply for our grants. We do that for the membership so they don't have to spend as much time making their decisions. So we're the ones that look through all the different applications and look for nonprofits that kind of meet our strategic and organizations philanthropic strategy, I guess. And so we do some of that for our membership. And by the time our membership votes on the last couple of finalists, we've done a really good job of checking out financials, checking out staffing, checking out competencies so that our membership doesn't have to do that. So their investment is a little bit more carefree. And in all the years I've done this, I've never seen money go to an organization that we knew wasn't deserving, was going to put our money to good use. It also, for me, and for a lot of us, we join Impact Austin for different reasons. Some of us do to network, and some of us do to make philanthropic donations, but a lot of us do it to become better philanthropists. And so participating in the committee is this phenomenal education in philanthropy and how to learn to give and how to make decisions and how to define what's important to you this year, even though it might not be important to you next year. So it really deepens your understanding and commitment to the organization. And we love having diversity in the people on our grant review committees, so different minds and different brains are looking at those grants and making choices with a whole bunch of different sets of knowledge. And with that, I will turn it over to Elaine.
Yeah, so like in a nutshell, you know, the responsibility of what this committee does is they assess all of the grants that come in, and then we have training to like how to look at that, you know, what lenses to put on it, what to pay attention to. We discuss all the ones that we review and make a group vote on which ones that we're going to move towards a deep dive. And then finally, we're going to select the final two that we want to put forth to membership to vote on at I think the annual meeting. Is that what it is? So that's what we're doing. And so we just do a thorough evaluation and we trust the process. And like Ann said, every year, the right to get voted towards the annual membership.
Thanks, Elaine. So how do we accomplish that logistically? Well, we have grant review committees that historically have met 2 times a year. We're transitioning back to a single grant review cycle. It is the spring cycle, which spring in Texas starts in February, of course. So the committees this year will begin their process on either February 19th or February 20th, depending on whether or not which committee you get placed in. And that committee will meet up to April 29th or 30th. So the middle of February through the end of April is our actual grant cycle. There's 2 options for participating in a grant review committee this spring cycle. You can either do it in person or virtually. And so the in-person is a phenomenal opportunity to get face-to-face with other Impact Austin members and meet each other like in real life, IRL. And there's a lot of community that comes out of those interactions. We also have the virtual option because we know that while in person is wonderful and helps to foster and facilitate a lot of lasting relationships and great conversation, the realities of modern life is that getting to a real place by 6:30 p.m. on a weekday can be very challenging. And so virtual is a wonderful option for our committee members that need that additional flexibility and really want to participate, but are more comfortable or their schedules only allow for a logging on, like to showing up virtually versus showing up physically. We love new members in this process. The more new members in the room, the merrier. Our grants process is incredibly thorough and should not be intimidating for somebody who has just joined Impact Austin. It really is such a welcoming space and place for new members to commune and connect with the mission of the organization, as Jerrica so wonderfully put earlier on the call. We also love new members because they question our process. They ask why, they probe, they ask for clarification, they raise their hands a lot. A lot of our tenured members maybe take some things that we do for granted. And we love to be challenged in this process and to look for opportunities to make sure that the values of the organization are reflected in the process that we have for narrowing down our applicants and for ultimately selecting our finalists and promoting those forward to the membership overall. So new members, do not be scared or intimidated. We got you, and we welcome and want you on these committees. I joined Impact Austin and immediately joined a grant review committee. And Jerrica's nodding because I'm pretty sure she did the same thing and did the same thing. The other thing is that being a member of the grant review committee also oftentimes leads to a more satisfied member. So those folks who have participated in this process tend to make those relationships and contacts that they're looking for and tend to stay with Impact Austin longer. So anyway, that's our plug for like new members. Join the GRCs. So one of the big questions that we get is what does my commitment look like? So there are 4 meetings in the grant review process. There is our 4 official meetings. There is our meeting 1, which is like a boot camp, JK. It is our process review. So in meeting 1, grant review committee members will be provided an overview of what the grant review process looks like, what we're doing, why we're doing it, the criteria that we use for evaluating the grants, and then the committee members will receive a big old heaping helping of homework coming out of that first meeting. That homework is in the assignment of our initial round of grant application reviews. So between meeting 1 and meeting 2, we will assign grant applications to all the committee members to review, and we will give you the tools and the criteria that are necessary to review those applications. And grant and committee members will go in and conduct those reviews and then evaluate those applications on a recommend or don't recommend for proceeding forward. The number of applications that you are assigned to review is based on the number of applications that we receive through the solicitation process from our nonprofit partners and the number of committee members that we have. So the more committee members we have on a committee, the better, because it means the fewer number of applications any one individual committee member will have to review. We get asked, like, how long should I budget for that, that piece of homework? Well, anywhere from 4 hours to 8 hours, potentially. The review of a grant application, if it's the first time you're doing it, it will take longer. If you've done this, if this is your 6th time participating on a grant review committee, you're not going to take as long because you know what you're looking for. You've been educated by Jerrica and your other committee members on how to evaluate a grant application, how to see if they're using the right tools and techniques to measure outcomes and whether or not the criteria are being met. So if you're new to the process, it's probably a 20-minute review per application, give or take. And some people are more detail oriented. Some people like to take lots of notes. If you are more experienced in the process, it may be a 10-minute review per application. But we do like to be clear and transparent with folks and let them know that this is probably the biggest commitment of time in the process is this initial round of grant application reviews. It's incredibly important to the process and it's the biggest time commitment. And there's only about 10 days in between meeting 1 and meeting 2 and 1 weekend. So you have to be able to commit that time in that time period. So that's an incredibly important piece of information for people to consider when they're determining whether or not they have the bandwidth to commit to a grant review committee. The other thing, well, I'll say that later. Meeting 2 is narrowing down the field of anywhere from 20 to 50 applications, depending on how many have been submitted for the area that we are awarding a grant in, to 6. So we go from a whole lot to 6. Sometimes we go from a whole lot to 6 in one meeting. And that is such a wonderful meeting because we go through and we talk about almost, I'd say probably we talk about 50 to 60% of those applications in some level of depth. And by depth, I mean like 3 to 5 minutes. So it's a great time for folks to get more familiar with the applications that have been presented to us. Meeting 3, we take those 6 applications, which have been assigned out to subcommittees for what we call a deep dive, which is a smaller group within the committee, a subcommittee, doing research on one of those 6 applications and submitting a report, reporting out to the rest of the committee on what they found about that organization and the program that they're putting forth for the grant. So meeting 3 is a really fun meeting. Each of the subcommittees delivers a report, and we get to discuss even more in depth the virtues of the application, the program, and the applicant. At that meeting, we take those 6 applications and narrow it down to our 3 semifinalists. Those semifinalists then proceed to what we refer to as the site visit round. And that's where we actually get to go and meet our nonprofits. So we get to physically go. I think we're doing all physical, right? Yeah. We get to physically go on site. We get to ask their staff questions. We get to meet board members. It's a really, really wonderful experience. And those are site visits, and that happens in between meeting 3 and meeting 4. Meeting 4 is super fun because we do site visit reports. So the folks who were able to go on site visits will produce a report, and they will report out to the grant review committee on what they found at the site visit. We also have a little party at meeting 4, which is really fun. So we do a little social, we do a little eating, we do a little wine drinking if that's your thing. And we get to have a little bit more of a social interaction before we get down to the nitty-gritty business of Impact Austin work. Then we do our Impact Austin work, and at the end of that meeting, we take those 3 semifinalists and we select the 2 finalists that will go to the overall membership for voting. Now I'm going to pause for a minute and breathe because I just threw a lot of information at you all. Are there any questions to this point, or anything that I missed that anyone wants to add? Insights or experiences from their experience with the GRC?
Yeah, I think when you're first time reviewing these, it's really hard to say no. These are all really wonderful organizations, and it takes getting after you've reviewed like 2 or 3, then you start to see, okay, now I have things to compare it to, and makes that process of reviewing just a little bit easier. But the first meeting, you're going to drink from a fire hydrant, and it's going to be overwhelming. It gets better. It's just that one point in time.
I always like to cuddle up on the couch like that Saturday, because I know during the week I'm not going to do it. So Saturday I make my tea, I tell my husband to go away, and I just sit there on the couch and I have my little notes and I just read through all the applications. And it is a little overwhelming, not in the sense that it's a great amount of work, but it just warms your heart hearing all these great initiatives and activities that nonprofits are wanting to do. And you get to read about things that they've done in the past that have been successful and why they want to grow their programming. And for me, it's always just like a fun, enjoyable time. I know that like I won't have like a strong contender who I think is going to be a finalist, but we'll get to discuss that in meeting 2 with our committee. So for me, I'm just like taking in that information, jotting down some notes. And one other thing I wanted to add, meeting number 4, having been part of the virtual committee in the past, is so much fun because all these little boxes of our Brady Bunch, we get to pull it together and actually see each other in person. And it's such a great opportunity to see these women that you've been working with for months, like in person, and have that connection and start talking about like who our finalists going to be. So it really is a great connection time. So if you aren't able to be in person for meetings, there will be an opportunity to meet your committees in person. And it's always a really enjoyable time from my experience.
I agree. So most of our meetings are scheduled for 2 hours. There are times where they run over a little bit to 2.5 hours. Impact Austin prides itself on trying to run on time. So your co-chairs and your advisors will be very diligent on the timekeeping. They're chunky. Those meetings are a block of time in your evenings for those 4 evenings during the process. I believe I have gone through all of the notes for the most part.
Okay. Well, I can throw out a couple of questions I know we often get.
Sure.
One of them is, how do I know what the membership will respond to? How do I know I'm selecting the right organization?
That's a great question, Elaine.
Are you going to answer?
Sure. I'm going to answer what Anne always says, and then she can correct me. You have to trust the process. So one of the benefits of there being a grant review committee and not a grant review czar is that it is the collective insights of 20 to 30 members in the room. So we give you criteria to look at, and we give you lots of training, but I try to encourage members to not get too stuck on whether or not something will necessarily resonate with every single person, because we already have 30 different perspectives gathered in that room. Is that an okay answer?
Yes, and I would also say it's not on any one individual's shoulders. Don't feel like you're carrying the burden of the entire organization. If, it all works out. It does all work out.
Right.
What happens if I have to miss a meeting?
Ooh. Anne?
So as Margaret and everybody's outlined, it's an ongoing process and it's a commitment. And we're cool. Life happens, kids happen, work happens, travel happens. We're cool with missing one meeting, but if you feel you're going to miss more than one meeting, we're asking you to come back another year and be on a committee, just because we need your input and we want you to stay engaged, and we want it to be as fulfilling for you as it is for everybody else. We need your brain. So just plan on coming back next year. This isn't a good year for you.
And I would also say, we're so low stress about this. We know people have lives and things come up. We don't make anyone feel guilty or bad if they have to back out. It's all okay. We have other people that is going to pick it up and run with it, and we move forward. Speaking of, what happens if I don't review all my applications?
Fired.
Jerrica, you answer that one. You were really busy last cycle with a bunch of stuff. What happens?
I don't know what happens because I reviewed all of my applications. But through each step of the cycle, going back to something that Elaine said, it's not all in one person. So you'll have people that you're discussing this with, and be honest, like in your community, like, I didn't review this one. Can someone fill me in? What's nice about each meeting is that we do a very high level kind of recap and synopsis of each application. So someone will kind of summarize like what their main takeaways were for the application, how it compared with other ones that they looked at. And if you don't have a very strong opinion because you didn't review it, you don't have to vote for something that doesn't speak to your heart. So you're not going to be in trouble. I would definitely encourage you to do your homework. But we're all human. We're all volunteers. Things do happen. But you'll have an opportunity to catch up later to review, especially if that organization's application moves to the deep dive stage. You'll get a chance to learn more about that organization.
And can we talk a little bit about like what that deep dive looks like? Like, what kind of things are we looking at?
Sure. So I can give a perspective from the financials. Every committee that I've been a part of, I've been what we call an embedded member of our grant financial review. So as an embedded member, you're part of the grant review committee, but then you're also helping provide a financial lens on these applications. So when you are doing a deep dive, you'll be partnered with, is it total of 3 or 4 committee members to do a deep dive on that application?
Ideally 4. Yeah, ideally 4.
I've always been 2, so I don't know. That's the reason. But we go be outside of just like the 4 sides of that application. We can look online, do some research on like who serves on their board, what is their leadership team made up of, what type of things have they done in the past that gives us confidence that they'd be able to do this in the future, or what kind of relationships and partnerships do they have in the community that gives us confidence in maybe a newer organization that's applying for funds. So it's a time to really dig into that organization. You'll have one person that's specifically assigned to look at the financials, so like line by line of their budget. If they have an audit, you'll read the audit that they submit, and you and your committee will speak about how you felt about that application and write a summary that will be presented at meeting 3. So that's when really it kind of becomes like a little mini book report. You'll have an opportunity to talk about the organization that you did additional research on. For my committees, we always just like met virtually or talk on the phone. But again, if you'd like to meet in person, that works for your schedules, go for it. Another chance to build community, but just an opportunity to really dig a little deeper and determine how your group would advise the committee whether or not they want to move that forward in the process.
And one thing we haven't talked about, but Jerrica just brought it up, was the grant finance committee, which is hugely important because for those of us that don't math well, that group really tells you, they look at the 990s and they've got financial expertise that really takes that piece off of your plate. So don't feel like you have to have a CPA license or anything like that in reviewing. What if I can only attend one site visit and not all?
That is totally okay. So we like to have a consistent group go to all 3 of those site visits, just so that we can have some members that have seen all 3 for comparative reasons. But if the only one you can go to is the applicant that you reviewed, or you have a real like vested interest in that organization, that is totally a-okay. We invite everyone to participate in site visits, and they really are one of the more rewarding. And the whole process is incredibly rewarding, but getting to go on site and meet the nonprofits face to face and talk about what they're doing in our community is so incredible. And we would never discourage somebody from participating if they can only attend one of those meetings.
And what's nice about that, if you're not able to attend, there will be a report written for the group that did attend. So you'll have an opportunity to review their observations, and there's like a standard set of questions that we'll report on for each of the organizations. So you'll still have some insight to what that site visit experience was like.
Yeah.
How are we doing time-wise, you guys?
I think we can wrap it up really quickly, I think, Anne. But one more thing I want to say is, what about those that don't feel qualified? Be on it.
Everyone's qualified. Everyone is qualified. We will learn you how to work this process. So there is so much information that is provided to grant review committee members to help them step through the process. And everyone is qualified, just like everyone is qualified to be a philanthropist. Every member of Impact Austin is qualified to be on a grant review committee. The path that you have walked in life has made you qualified to be a part of this process. And we want your perspective, and we want your, whatever your special area of expertise, or your background, whatever you bring to the table, that's what makes you qualified. As a Impact Austin member to be a part of the process. And this is so much fun, y'all. Like, it is work, but the grant review committees are a ton of fun. It is serious work that we have a lot of fun doing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of community. There's a lot of conversation that happens. There's some debate that occurs. Like, it's really such a it's such a special process with a community of such dynamic, thoughtful, intelligent women that come together for this common purpose. It's really, really so fun and so special.
Gosh, I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now. We're fabulous, aren't we?
I have a quick question.
Yeah, of course.
So how do you determine, so speaking of everybody's talents and what they bring to the table, how do you determine once you sign up? Because I noticed there's a first choice and a second choice for community or education. So how do y'all determine which committee? Because on the application, it doesn't look like, you put any of your background or anything like that. So how do y'all know once we make a choice of which committee we want, which portion of it, community or education, we want to be in?
So we always try to give you your first choice. But if there's a conflict of interest, say you're on a board of a nonprofit that applies for a grant, we're probably not going to be on that committee, even though it's your first choice. And but we always try to give everyone their first choice, and most of the time we can. And then occasionally, when we're balancing out the numbers, and we have more people that have a first choice of one committee versus the other, occasionally we have to move people over. And then we'll look at experience level. We'll look at new members and try to make sure they have a good shot. We'll look at experience. Sometimes I'll reach out to experienced members and say, hey, would you mind? But it typically isn't an issue. Every once in a great while, we'll have someone that needs to drop out, so we move someone else. But again, it's always done collaboratively. So it works pretty well. It's amazing how easily the numbers settle out themselves. I don't know why that happens every year, but it does.
Awesome. Okay.
Does anyone have questions? Well, I wanted to close with what my favorite memory was. So Margaret and I co-chaired a few years ago, and at meeting 4, which is super fun and our favorite part, a 25-year-old girl came up to us and said, I want to be you when I grow up. And it just made me feel so good that I didn't even realize I was being a role model or teaching future philanthropists, but that really hit my heart and made me feel really good.
Aw, that was sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I really I still remember the first site visit I ever went on, which was Austin Sunshine Camps, which is an organization that we are still involved with today, as in my professional and personal life, not my Impact Austin life so much. But just getting to be boots on the ground and having that interaction with the nonprofit, with a wonderful organization, a super dynamic executive director, was just really, really cool. And it's not an experience that you get to have if you're just sitting at your table writing checks, or if you're just on the board of a single nonprofit in town, or if you're just buying tables to galas, luncheons, and dinners. So it's a unique experience that we get to have as philanthropists in this community that is incredible.
I would say one of my favorite memories of serving on a grant review committee. It was my first in-person committee, and I was on a committee with Aaron McCord for a second time, but we had never really talked in person. And after our meeting, we stood in that church parking lot, no joke, and talked for 45 minutes in the dark. It was night. We live on opposite ends of the city, but we just clicked instantly, and to have that connection with someone so immediately and have a shared foundation that we just learned from working with each other was so nice and enriching. And she's always someone that I look forward to any meetings where we text each other back and forth different things that are going on in the nonprofit community. And it's a friendship that I really cherish. And I think we have a lot of special connection, and I will never forget that night. It was such a fun way to really connect with someone on a deeper level.
And I'm going to be really boring here and say my favorite moment is moments like this. I just enjoy the opportunity to work with a lot of different women, some who are continually bring new ideas to me. I want to keep evolving. And so this has been a great way to challenge my intellect and my heart and my passion. And it continues to be rewarding. I look forward to all these conversations.
Well, I want to say thank you, everyone participating today and joining us. I really appreciate it. If you have any other questions, please reach out to us anytime. We are happy to answer.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
This is great. Very helpful. Thanks, y'all. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.